Namaskar and welcome to the second part of our program on the Indian Pavilion at the World Expo in Dubai 2020. In this part, we look at several themes at the Indian Pavilion. We look at biodiversity and renewables, tourism, education, skill development, India on the global stage, and the branding of India.
I am proud to say India did not view the pandemic through a narrow prism of a crisis, but converted it into an opportunity to reform, perform, and transform the country. With our belief in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. We assisted nations across the world with medicines, with vaccines. We showed that India cares for the world. Today, India is the destination with a confluence of bright minds providing creative solutions for a better future. One of the oldest and biggest nations has now become an integral part of the world's oldest and biggest event. From the Garba dance to invoking Lord Ganpati, we have shared a message of Sukh, Shanti and Samriddhi, happiness, peace and prosperity for the entire world. The India Pavilion symbolizes pride, potential and the power of Indian citizens living all around the globe. It is a window to India's journey, the past, present and the future. It tells a story of aspiration. It serves as a symbol of audacity and an invitation to the entire world. I wish to tell the world, you can bet on India and you will certainly win. Our theme at the Dubai Expo 2020, India on the Move, describes the rise of a new India, rejuvenated, reimagined, reinvented, which faces challenges with a conviction, which converts adversities into opportunity.
We continue to have with us an eminent panel of guests. Let me introduce you to them. Rakesh Bali, a Senior Vice President and Head Marketing at Petrochem, which is from Reliance. Ankur Gupta as Head Corporate Affairs and Growth at Tata Sons for the Middle East and North Africa. And Bhimsena Rao is President Operations and Business Development of the Hinduja Group. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Mr. Bali, the theme of is India on the Move, as our Commerce and Industry Minister mentioned while he was there. The thing is about vibrancy. It's about, this is all plainly visible that India is definitely on the move. But it's also a new India, and it's a new India that's looking at the next generation of 5G, AI, Internet of Things, that revolution. To what extent, are we in a position to take advantage of or leapfrog because of our strengths in this particular area?
See, absolutely. You already, spoken the magic words, the 5G, the AI, the, Industry 4.0, etc. And Indians and Indian, software skills and now hardware skills like Reliance is coming out with the first ever homegrown 5G anywhere in the world outside of China. All these technological, advancements, and then the youth power that we have in India. And the Gen Next, all these what we call the startups that are coming up from India, all augur extremely well for India, and I think we are very, very soon. And this is something which is palpable, which will, as the event kind of shapes out better, I'm sure all the corporates and all the other participants and partners to this expo will showcase that for the India Pavilion. And this is something which augurs extremely well for India. So I have no doubt that future actually belongs to India.
So it's a 6-month event, Mr. Gupta, and from what I've read, I think the organizers are hoping that 25 million people will be attending, whether they are, government, business, the whole lot. As far as business leaders are concerned, how do you calculate? I mean, how do you calculate what you can get out of something like this? 25 million people coming over there from such an attempt. How would you gauge whether it's a success for you or not?
So the scale is, of course, phenomenal. The way you think about it, 25 million visits over approximately 26 weeks. So it's a million visits happening every single week for 26 weeks. We do see India as a prominent pavilion, and given the diaspora here, 40% of the UAE population is Indian, and we have strong trade ties. India, UAE, second largest trade partner, more than $60 billion of trade. So there is a lot of interest. There has been a lot of groundwork which is being done between the two countries. The Honorable Minister has also, not just in the pavilion but outside the pavilion as well, done a series of meetings with various industry leaders and formed committees on how to accelerate investments and cooperation, economic cooperation between both these countries, and then of course expand that to the region itself. For us, success would certainly be both in terms of our B2B businesses, B2C businesses. We have TCS, one of our flagship companies, Tata Communications, Tata Steel would be prominent part of this expo. Vistara, Taj, Titan would be a very important part of this expo on our behalf. And we should see, we've already had a lot of interest around some of the new developments, new businesses which we are launching in India, and would be phenomenal to see developments on that side happen through the support of this expo.
Mr. Rao, among the themes, one of the themes is climate and biodiversity. And so what are the opportunities you see? You've already spoken about e-vehicles and stuff like that. But, with sustainability, renewables, waste to wealth, these are all areas that India shows promise.
Just a beginning. We need to do more on this. We need to work very, because the rest of the world is moving away. If you take a Middle East here, for the first time in the last 2-3 years, the amount of investment in solar energy, they realize it's a natural resource which they have not been capitalized. But today, it's a matter of they have already in their plan put in the next 30 years, they are going to be completely based on solar energy. So this is a necessity. This has come about, and there are other opportunities. So based on this, whether if you take the EV vehicle or everything coming, there is no point in burning fuel and running EV vehicles at one side. So they've come to that understanding already. They've already invested very heavily into solar energy here. So getting into renewable space is a necessity. We all agree on this. But in India, it's only a part of the agenda. But this resources required to move it, to make a significant difference. I think it's more on the private sector, which if there's given a space or given the policy, given the thing, will come in a very, very big way. And this is what is going to be significant. The government cannot be in everywhere, but the policy making, the regulation, they can come in terms of acting and actors, has to be from the private space, just like the way the startups and the ITs have taken over the world and conquering the world based on a private enterprise, which is going on, but all regulated by the government. So the interesting mix here. So the government continues to regulate, the government continues to comply, the government continues to facilitate, and this is the way to go forward. And it is sooner than later, India will be there. But the question is, it has to be more than rhetoric and promise at the moment. And I'm sure my co-panelists will agree with me. The more the policy is in favor, I'm sure you will see grandiose announcements happening very quickly from everybody, including us.
Mr. Bali, in terms of urban development, what do you see? The shortcomings, because at the end of the day, India is going to have massive cities. There's a lot of movement from rural into urban, and we are going to have the largest cities in the world over time. What do you think? Are there opportunities beyond digital connectivity here that we are seeing, the concept of smart cities going forward?
Absolutely. Given the size of our country and given our population and the diversity, I think it is inevitable that we actually look at those areas very, very seriously. As long as our people are productively engaged and they have opportunities for growth, I'm sure they would be focusing on development, which will in turn also help our country get over lots of ills which have been plaguing us in the past. So I think urban development, smart cities, use of technologies, and employment opportunities for people is something which will really augur well, and I'm sure this is something which is on the agenda for governments.
Mr. Gupta, in terms of education and skill development, that's really something that will put us up there amongst the big economies. We may be going to be a $5 trillion economy, but once we have the manpower that's capable of accelerating growth, we already have our people like you and others who are going to different parts of the world and have the potential to lead the big giants. So the point is that if all that can happen within our country, what do you see? I mean, do you see a huge potential here in terms of education? Because there have been experiments that have taken place because of the pandemic, and people went online, and there are hybrid modes of education. We can actually start raising the scale of our education.
Mark, very interesting point, simply because we need to understand this region a little bit more. Very well known that this part of the world has been dependent on oil and continues to be dependent on oil for a long time. But there's a very aggressive diversification agenda, which all the kingdoms here, countries ever launched. And the focus is on new age industries, specifically tourism, trade, technology, urban infrastructure development, construction, etc. Right? So these are new industries. UAE is, of course, a little bit ahead in terms of the development, and it is the most diversified economy in the region. But there is certainly skills which are not available here, and skills which need to be built. So hospitality skills, for example, is something which is inherent for us in India, but it needs to be built here. Engineering, information technology are skills which need to be built here. One example which I want to talk about is Tata Consultancy Services in 2012-13 set up Saudi Arabia's first all-women's technology business processing center. And it employed about 1,000 women. And we still run that center, and a great example of how companies in India are bringing over their skill sets, training people here, and working together for the betterment of the economy here, as well as adding value to the economy back in India. And I think these collaborations are only going to increase going forward in multiple sectors.
So, Mr. Rao, to what extent are the interests of corporates aligned with the interests of the states in the pavilion? I mean, we did talk about this a little earlier, but at the end of the day, it's, investments, if they have to come in because of our federal structure, they have to, be associated with state governments as well. So to what extent is that actually being aligned?
Well, the situation is like this. Everybody, the private sector or any foreign investor is going to ask you the ease of doing business.
Exactly.
Second, he's going to ask for a one single window to go ahead and get all his, whether it is his land or power or he has a funding or he has any policies, anything that is going to be on a single window. Now, this is something, we are a federal structure, each state, multiple parties, each having its own agenda, each driving. So the question is, there's a bit of a disconnect. We have an India story and we have a state story, and both must align to. So this is where it is. Well, everybody wants to aspire to do everything. Every state wants to aspire to do everything. That does not happen. What we need is basically to understand what is the comparative advantage of each state vis-a-vis the other state, and say, okay, from now on, there is IT space. Not every state needs to do it.
Okay, so there is some work to be done there, but Mr. Bali, if I can come to you with regard to, I mean, now we don't, the World Bank has done away with the ease of doing business, so that, at least those ratings. But do you see the India Pavilion actually highlighting very clearly how easy it is to do business in India?
I'm sure, like I said, with the various business delegations coming, with Vicky being involved, they kind of, I was meeting with them yesterday night, and they said that they're completely kind of taking over the management now that the beginning construction etc. has been over. So I'm sure there are plans that they have with all the various delegations and various ministries getting involved and various thematic programs being organized by states. I'm sure that's going to be on the agenda. Besides that, all the facilitation that corporates are having here and the communications they are putting out, because eventually it's not only the state but also the private sector which has to play a role. I'm sure going forward that's something which is going to help communicate the opportunities as well as the ease of doing business with India.
Mr. Gupta, India has massive tourist potential. I mean, look at what we are showcasing in the pavilion. I mean, if you have to come to the country itself, you can see it all, in that context. And now we are looking post-pandemic because India has, we are almost at the endemic stage. We are unlikely to have, a very any more trouble with the pandemic. I mean, touch wood. But the point is that do you see events like this in a position to actually promote tourism to India?
Probably, I don't think there would be a better platform than a World Expo and having India with all its diversity, nature, culture, tourism, business opportunities come together and present itself and attract tourists, and leisure tourists, business tourists to India. Of course, it's a subject which is very close to our heart, given the Taj, and humbly we also recognize the world's #1 hospitality brand by Brand Finance, and then that's something which we have been talking about as only being possible because of being part of the ethos and DNA of Indian hospitality. Sustainable tourism, ecotourism is another element which FICCI and Indian authorities have been focusing, and FICCI is organizing a global event around this, and we will certainly be participating. There is a lot of curiosity. There are, of course, 192 pavilions to go to for everyone who's coming in here, but India remains high. And the engagement and footfalls, as my colleagues will attest, over the last 2 days have been phenomenal. And if that's a symbol of the interest in the pavilion, then I'm sure we are set to see a lot of tourism into the country. Travel rules are also quite flexible, and that would help us.
Mr. Rao, do you see India hosting such events in the future? I mean, we did speak about this a little earlier, but scale is going to be important because, I mean, what India has to offer is obviously much more than the UAE in terms of, size and scale. So we'd have to have a much larger, event on a much bigger scale, and perhaps many such events to try and market a country as rich as ours, rich in diversity, I mean, yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is something that we need to do and do it quickly, whether it is hosting the Olympics or the Expo. We need to be on the world stage. If you want to be a 5 trillion economy, we have to start showcasing from now. Only then, because we still have a huge gap to cover. We need to bring the world to our door, not to see what we have to offer. And we have multiple things to offer, great things to offer. And our human capital and the best of brains are there, and we need to use it. And it's high time we did it, and we are capable, and we'll do a great show at that.
Indeed.
It's a sense of national pride. It's a sense of bringing India to the world stage in the real sense of the term. We need to be there.
Mr. Bali, much has been said about India being the pharmacy of the world. Do you see this sector as, evergreen in a sense? Because there's a lot of untapped potential also for our traditional medicines and other aspects which probably have not been taken to the rest of the world, part of our cultural ethos as well. And this has also gained some prominence during the pandemic because, people did turn to these forms of solutions, and they actually worked, and they definitely helped people. What do you say?
world is turning towards holistic well-being, and well-being because of the COVID and this pandemic has actually become a big focus, and people are realizing, not only is it important to look at immediate mitigation of the ailments, but also long-term preemptive treatment, be it physical or mental or emotional well-being. And India, of course, has something for each of this. Our pavilion, I've seen we have a big focus on yoga and how yoga can have long-term well-being effect on humans. Besides that, all the other ancient medical practices, be it Ayurveda, be it homeopathy. And of course, I think even from the perspective of new age medicines, there are a whole lot of things that India, would be doing for the world. We are perhaps one of the few countries who could, and that's the reason why we have been able to kind of, get out such a huge percentage of our population vaccinated. And going forward, I'm sure a whole lot of our other companies would be coming out with medicines which would play a major role. Reliance, for example, itself through our biosciences are coming up with a whole lot of new age, formulations and medications which will play going forward a major role in holistic well-being for human beings globally.
Mr. Gupta, I mean, the final question to both you and Mr. Rao, what are what's the role really for Indian multinationals in building brand India? I mean, this is ultimately what you all are doing, but the point is that if India is to become one of the major economies that the world looks at, we have to be all over the place, and it has to be through Indian companies, not the other way around. So how is it going to happen?
Mark, a phenomenal question. It is something which is the responsibility not just of our diplomacy and our ambassadors, who are doing a phenomenal job with engaging with relevant stakeholders. But as multinationals, when we are engaging with stakeholders here, which could be the regulatory authorities, institutions, banks, and other business houses, we are taking brand India, we are representing India, Indian businesses, Indian culture, Indian ethos to them, and helping form an impression, for good or bad, of what India and Indian businesses are like. And hence it's a responsibility for global companies to then set benchmarks which showcase the best of India and create a pathway for all of our other companies to have a halo effect and leverage the platform which, let's say, some of the more established businesses are setting for them globally in the West and in the East.
Mr. Rao, what do you have to say?
Every Indian is a flag bearer when he goes out, steps out of his country. It's important that we get brand India to be seen. Otherwise, what happens is individual companies, when we go abroad, what is identified with us is the country branding. Like, for example, we say precision engineering, go to Germany, quality, go to Japan. I mean, these are all things which have stuck with the country. For us, we talk of culture, values, spiritual wealth, all this we have been doing with. But IT has got its own, today India is known for it. We are seen as a world power in IT. There are multiple things we have done. But the point is, cogently, we have not sat together to beat the drum loud and clear so that it goes into everybody that we represent what we are and what we represent to the world, what we mean to the world. So we are sending multiple diffused messages. So the brand India per se is only off late in the last decade, which is being seen as, okay, this is a big economy. It is performing. It is growing. It is now got about 60,000 plus startups happening. It's got 60 unicorns there. And now 50% of that is coming from women. So we are empowering the women are empowering the society. So we are talking, and this is something which is a very, very glorious beginning. Again, I would say it because every decade brings its own thing. And this currently, if you ask me, building brand India, whether it is on the political side, leadership has done an excellent job. We are now welcome everywhere. The doors are opening. Similarly, Our engineering industries, our products are all going in everywhere, whether it's food products or anything, the quality standards have gone up. So if you look at it from that point of view, we are right there. Get the India branding done, make sure more it's cogent, more clarity, and stick to it. Let's not get bored with ourselves with what we do. We need to get more stronger there, stick to the way. We are here to win, and we'll do it all together.
Would you like to add anything to this, Mr. Bali?
Absolutely. I completely echo with Mr. Rao. This is something which we are already doing. We are, getting better and better at it, and it's high time that we kind of really stand through this on the whole world. Yes.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Rakesh Bali, Senior Vice President, Head Marketing, Petrochem from Reliance. Ankur Gupta, Head Corporate Affairs and Growth, Tata Sons, Middle East and North Africa, and H. Bhimsena Rao, President Operations and Business Development of the Hinduja Group. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Orang National Park is situated amidst dense forests with tall trees and highland grasses, and is the perfect place to stay in for those who are looking for rejuvenation from the hustle and bustle of city life. The park is well connected by road, rail and air links with nearby towns in Assam. The nearest town is Tezpur at a distance of 64 kilometers from the park. Guwahati is about 109 kilometers from the park. It is 15 kilometers off the national highway near Orang town, Dhansirimukh, which is the nearest village that is a further 12 kilometers away. Dhansirimukh is 127 kilometers away from Guwahati. The nearest railhead is Salonibari and Rangapara. Both Tezpur and Guwahati are connected very well by the rail network of India. March and April is the best season to visit the park. Visiting is restricted to 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. and 2 to 3 p.m. The park gate remains closed in between. However, advance authorization of the Divisional Forest Officer, Mongoldoi, is essential to visit the park.
I hope that visitation to the park increases in the coming days, and also we will use all possible media to make sure that there is such a beautiful park existing on the north bank of Assam, and it is just 2.5 hours away from Guwahati. And I would also like to say that a new beautiful road is being constructed, so which would even reduce the time to reach this place. So in this way, I hope many people will take so many beautiful memories from this park and the experiences.
Forest species found are Bombax ceiba, Dalbergia sisu, Sterculia villosa, Trevia nudiflora, Ziziphus jujuba, and Litseia polyantha. Among the non-aquatic grassland species, the prominent are Phragmites carca, Arundo donax, Imperita cylindrica, and Saccharum sep. The aquatic grass plants species found are Andropogon, Ipomoea reptans, Anhydra fluctans, Nymphea spp, and water hyacinth.
and good evening. You're watching Express News, where we bring you a quick wrap-up of all that's made news throughout the day from around the world. I'm Samriddhi Goyal. Let's begin. In a historic event for the infrastructure landscape of the country, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched Gati Shakti, National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity. Prime Minister Gati Shakti aims to break departmental silos and institutionalize holistic planning for stakeholders across major infrastructure projects. All the departments will now have a visibility of each other's projects through this centralized portal. The multimodal connectivity provides integrated and seamless connectivity for the movement of people, goods and services. PM Gati Shakti will also generate multiple employment opportunities, cut down of cost of logistics, improve supply chains and make local goods globally competitive. Prime Minister Gati Shakti is based on 6 pillars. Now these are comprehensiveness, prioritization, optimization, synchronization, analytical tools and dynamic platform. Prime Minister Modi also inaugurated 4 exhibition halls in the International Exhibition cum Convention Centre. These exhibition centres will give a platform to our MSMEs and industries to showcase their products to the world. Prime Minister Modi reviewed the new model connectivity at Pragati Maidan. He unveiled the Mega Gati Shakti Master Plan in the national capital, Delhi. In his address, the Prime Minister said the National Master Plan will provide Gati Shakti to the 21st century India with multimodal connectivity and next-generation infrastructure. He said the Prime Minister Gati Shakti Master Plan brings together government processes and other stakeholders together and also interlinks transport modes. Prime Minister Modi said the India of the 21st century is leaving behind old thinking and is moving forward. He said today's mantra is will for progress, work for progress, wealth for progress, plan for progress, preference for progress. Prime Minister Modi stressed that it is universally accepted that the creation of quality infrastructure leads to sustainable development and gives rise to many economic activities and employment on a large scale. He said Gati Shakti National Master Plan will also provide an analytical and decision-making tool to the investors and all the stakeholders involved in the policy making of the country. The Prime Minister said that in 5 years, before 2014, only 3,000 kilometers of railways were electrified. He stated that in the last 7 years, more than 24,000 kilometers of railway tracks have been electrified. Only 60 panchayats were connected with the optical fibre before 2004. But in the last 7 years, more than 1.5 lakh gram panchayats have been connected with optical fibre. India has also got a new infrastructure in the sector of inland waterways and seaplanes. Prime Minister said India just had 5 waterways in 2014, but today the country has 13 functional waterways. He said work is going on at a rapid speed to develop a modern ecosystem in the aviation sector. He said in order to improve air connectivity, new airports were built and air sector was opened up. Speaking on the occasion, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said India is progressing at a fast pace and Prime Minister Gati Shakti National Master Plan is a symbol of the Prime Minister Modi's foresight. He said this visionary master plan will map available infrastructure in the country and superimpose the ongoing projects on the map. Industry captains have welcomed the PM Gati Shakti Master Plan, calling Gati Shakti a game changer. Several industrialists who participated in the launch of the plan have lauded it. Let's listen in what they have to say. Army Chief General M.M. Naravane, who is on a 4-day visit to Sri Lanka, paid tribute to the brave hearts of the Indian Army who laid their lives during peacekeeping operations in Sri Lanka. The Army Chief laid wreath at the Indian Peacekeeping Force War Memorial in Sri Lanka. He interacted with veterans of the Sri Lankan Army. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is in Armenia on the last leg of his 3-nation tour to Central Asia with an aim to further expand bilateral ties and discuss key regional issues, including the developments in Afghanistan. He began the day by paying homage at the Tsitseranakarbad Memorial Complex in Armenia. The External Affairs Minister held talks with Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, Ararat Mirzoyan. The leaders discussed a roadmap to take bilateral cooperation forward. They also agreed on enhancing trade, education and cultural exchanges. Dr. S. Jaishankar also met the President of National Assembly of Armenia, Alan Simonyan. They discussed the importance of nurturing the bonds between two parliamentary democracies. They also spoke about bringing people closer together through greater cooperation in different domains. Dr. S. Jaishankar also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at his statue in Yerevan. Jaishankar thanked Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, Ararat Mirzoyan, for joining him on this occasion. Together, they planted a tree of friendship. The External Affairs Minister also met Indian students and Armenian friends of India in Yerevan. He appreciated the efforts made by the government of Armenia for the welfare of the Indian students. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will deliver the inaugural address at the webinar on role of women in armed forces being organised by Shanghai Cooperation Organisation tomorrow. The international webinar in video conference mode is hosted by the Ministry of Defence. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, along with 5 other Congress members, met President Ramnath Kovind and demanded an independent judicial inquiry into the Lakhimpur Kheri violence case. He also requested for the dismissal of the Minister of State for Home Affairs. The 30-share Sensex surged 453 points to hit a new closing high of 60,737. The Nifty 50 also rallied 170 points to 18,162. Gold prices were up by 164 rupees at the MCX to end at 47,362 rupees per 10 gram. Silver prices also rose by 593 rupees at the MCX to end at 62,179 rupees per kilogram. The Indian rupee rose 15 paise to close at 75 rupees 37 paise provisional against the US dollar. Brent crude futures, the global oil benchmark, declined 2.40% to US dollars 83.09 per barrel. Petrol and diesel prices were kept unchanged on Wednesday after the rates were hiked for a period of 7 consecutive days. Petrol is selling at Rs 104.44 per litre in Delhi, while diesel is selling at Rs 93.17 paise per litre. CNG and PNG prices have gone up by Rs 2 each. From today, CNG will be available at Rs 49.76 per kg and PNG at Rs 35.11 per standard cubic meter in the national capital. The new prices will be effective from today. International Monetary Fund has projected that India will continue to be the world's fastest growing major economy, clocking a growth rate of 9.5% in 2021. As per the latest IMF projections, Indian economy will grow at 8.5% in 2022. The world economy is expected to grow at 5.9% in 2021 and 4.9% in 2022, according to the IMF. The IMF said global recovery continues, but the momentum has weakened and uncertainty has increased. India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has exceeded the 96.43 crore mark as per provisional reports till 7 a.m. today. This has been achieved through 94,26,400 sessions. A total of 50,63,845 vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. Over 97.79 crore vaccine doses have been provided to the states and union territories so far through Government of India. Over 8.43 crore balance and unutilized COVID vaccine doses are still available with the states and union territories to be administered. India reported a total of 15,823 new cases in the last 24 hours. The country reported a total of 22,844 recoveries in the last 24 hours. Over 3 crore 33 lakh and 42,000 cases have been reported so far. Recovery rate currently is at 98.06% and is the highest since March 2020. Active cases account for less than 1% of the total cases. Currently at 0.61%, it is lowest since March 2020. Weekly positivity rate at 1.46% is less than 3% for the last 110 days. Daily positivity rate at 1.19%, less than 3% for the last 44 days. India had conducted over 58.63 crore total tests so far. World also continues its fight against COVID-19. So far, over 23 crore 95 lakh and 13,000 cases have been reported worldwide, while recoveries stand above 21 crore 68 lakh and 70,000. The deadly virus has so far claimed over 48 lakh and 82,000 lives globally. The United States remains to be the worst affected nation by the pandemic. The country has so far reported over 4 crore 54 lakh and 31,000 cases, while the death toll has surpassed 7 lakh and 37,000 mark. The White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has said that Texas Governor Greg Abbott's executive order barring employers and others from imposing a COVID-19 vaccine mandate is out of step with businesses in the state. Psaki said Abbott's decision was motivated by politics and not science. Boeing Company's US-based employees will now be required to show a proof of COVID-19 vaccination or have an approved medical or religious exemption by December 8th to comply with President Joe Biden's order for federal contractors. South Korea established a panel on Wednesday to debate a strategy on how to live with COVID-19 in the long term. The country seeks to phase out coronavirus restrictions and reopen the economy amid rising vaccination levels. Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyung told the panel's first committee meeting that the country will turn COVID-19 will no longer be a fear of the unknown and prepare citizens to return to their precious everyday lives. He added that mandatory mask wearing would not be immediately scrapped under the new policy. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia needed to speed up its COVID-19 vaccination campaign as the country recorded its highest single-day death toll since the start of the pandemic. Speaking to the newly elected lawmakers, Putin urged them to actively support efforts to have more of the population vaccinated. The Kremlin has blamed the rising case numbers on insufficient numbers of people getting inoculated. Russia on Tuesday reported 973 coronavirus-related deaths, its highest single-day toll since the start of the pandemic. The country has reported 28,190 new infections. The Democratic-controlled U.S. House of Representatives gave a final approval on Tuesday to legislation temporarily raising the government's borrowing limit to $28.9 trillion, pushing off the deadline or debt default only until December. Democrats, who narrowly control the House, maintained party discipline to pass the hard-fought $480 billion debt limit increase by 2019 to 106. Chancellor Angela Merkel said Germany is not yet prepared to recognize the Taliban as Afghanistan's government since it has not met the inclusiveness standards demanded of it. Speaking with members of the G20 group of major economies, Merkel also said leaders also demanded United Nations agencies be given full access to provide humanitarian aid. Iran has sent a plane carrying aid packages to Afghanistan's Kunduz airport. Local officials said the supplies of food and medicines were primarily intended for the families of the victims of the Syed Abad mosque blasts in Kunduz province last week. A former U.S. Navy nuclear engineer, Jonathan Toeb, and his wife, Diana, faced their first court hearing on charges they attempted to sell secrets about nuclear submarines to a foreign power in exchange for cryptocurrency. They appeared before the court for a formal reading of the criminal charges against them. They have not yet been asked to enter a plea to the charges. Demonstrators gathered in different cities of Bolivia on Tuesday to celebrate the indigenous Wifala flag and to show support for Bolivian President Luis Arce. During the Great Wifalozo, sympathizers of the mass ruling party arrived in La Paz, where Arce gave a speech at the San Francisco Square. People supporting the Shiite Muslim cleric Muqtada al-Sadr's party as winner gathered in Baghdad's Sadr city, saying they only have faith in the Sadrist movement. Others expressed less enthusiasm, saying there will be reform only if the people rise against the political elite. In the southern city of Basra, around 300 agitators gathered to protest the election results and lamenting their candidate's loss. The Spanish Coast Guard rescued 91 migrants off the Canary Islands on Tuesday. One migrant boat had 43 adult males and a second carried 48 adult males. They were all transferred to the port of Arguinuin in a Spanish maritime rescue ship. Locals in Mexico's Mazatlan, a tourist town in Sinaloa's Pacific coast, prepared for Storm Pamela by protecting storefronts and trying up boats. The U.S. National Hurricane Center has predicted that Storm Pamela will crash into the fertile farm state of Sinaloa in Mexico. In China's Shaanxi province, several people have died during incessant heavy rain and flooding. Normal dry regions of the country have received 3 months of rain in May 1 week. On the Spanish island of La Palma, over 700 residents were ordered to abandon their homes as red-hot lava advanced towards their neighborhood. There were 64 seismic movements on Tuesday, the strongest measuring 4.1. As the Day of the Dead approaches in Mexico, streets, homes and altars start to get covered in bright orange flowers of the Mexican marigolds. Marigolds, or cempasúchil as they are called in Mexico, are known as the flower of the dead. Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is a celebration of the life and death. On 2nd of November this year, Mexicans will celebrate the Day of the Dead. On this day, Mexicans remember and honor their deceased loved ones. They visit cemeteries, decorate the graves and spend time there in the presence of their deceased friends and family members. They also make elaborately decorated altars in their homes to welcome the spirits. The parents of Amy Winehouse are releasing nearly 800 personal and professional items belonging to their late daughter for auction. Winehouse, who released 2 albums before her untimely death at her Camden townhouse in July 2011 at the age of 27. According to the Julian's auctions, one of the top lots is considered to be the dress she wore during her last public performance in 2011 and is estimated between $15,000 to $20,000 US. Now, most of the other dresses are conservatively priced between $2,000 to $4,000 US. Thousands of Brazilian devotees gathered at the National Sanctuary of Lady of Aparecida in Sao Paulo City as the Basilica reopens for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. With 6 masses at the main building and 7 at an event center, parishioners were thankful for the opportunity to reunite with Brazil's most important and popular saint. Vivid green strands of light danced across the night sky over the Canadian province of Alberta. The Aurora Borealis, also known as the Northern Lights, were visible due to the impact of the coronal mass ejection. The Aurora Borealis also lit up the night skies of the United States night sky with a vivid green hue. Video shared on social media showed the shimmering lights over the Grand Forks in North Dakota. Wildlife officials in the U.S. state of Colorado have freed an elk of a tire which had been around its neck for at least 2 years. Officials from Colorado Parks and Wildlife intervened after a local resident alerted them of the bull's sighting. The animal was then located wandering amid a herd of 40 other elk. The team then tranquilized the elk and cut off its antlers before removing the tire. Peruvian police used a drone to rescue a pigeon trapped in a high-tension electric wire in Peru's Lima, which was stuck there for 12 hours. Video footage showed officers equipped a drone with a knife to cut the string that trapped the bird to the high-voltage cable. After falling down on a resident's roof, police and locals cut the string that was tied around the pigeon's legs. Neighbors brought the rescued animal to a local shelter for abandoned animals. A statue of Christopher Columbus in central London has been doused with red paint. The bronze statue of the 15th century Italian explorer sits on the edge of Belgrave Square, close to Buckingham Palace. It was seen covered in red paint with a red cross marked over the inscription commemorating the life of the Italian explorer between 1446 and 1506. Shardul Thakur has replaced Akshar Patel in India's squad for the T20 World Cup 2021. Akshar meanwhile joins the list of standby players for the squad along with Shreyas Iyer and Deepak Chahar. The BCCI also said 8 players would additionally be joining the team's bubble in Dubai to assist Team India in their preparations for the T20 World Cup. Inspired by the billion cheers of the sports fans, BCCI reveals the new jersey designed for Team India's T20 Cricket World Cup. MS Dhoni refuses to take any fee from the BCCI for mentoring Team India at the upcoming T20 Cricket World Cup. BCCI Honorary Secretary Jay Shah thanks Dhoni for extending his services to Team India. BCCI has started its hunt for Team India's head coach as Ravi Shastri, Bharat Arun and R. Sridhar's contracts will come to an end after T20 Cricket World Cup. Cricket Australia chairman Earl Eddings resigned on Wednesday, a day before he was due to stand for re-election at the board's annual general meeting. Director Richard Fruitstein was installed as chairman in his place and will serve for a short period until a permanent replacement is elected. India storms into the quarter-final round at the ongoing Thomas Cup 2021. The Indian men's badminton team defeated Tahiti 5-0 in a Group C match. In Indian Wells master, Andy Murray was knocked out in the third round on Tuesday night in a 6-4, 7-6, 7-4 defeat by Alexander Zverev. Followed by this development, Andy Murray has said that he will not participate in the upcoming Davis Cup. India to face host Maldives in their last round Robin League match of the SAF Championship in Malé, Maldives later today. Cristiano Ronaldo's hat-trick helps Portugal stroll over a 5-0 win over Luxembourg in World Cup qualifying Group A on Tuesday. The victory ensures Portugal remains a point behind group leader Serbia. England took another step towards 2022 World Cup qualification when they drew 1-1 with Hungary at Wembley on Tuesday. England now 3 points clear at the top of Group 1 with 2 matches remaining. October 13 marks the death anniversary of legendary singer and actor Kishore Kumar. Many celebrities took to social media to pay their tribute. Kishore Kumar died on October 13 in 1987 at the age of 58. After Luka Chupi, actors Kartik Aaryan and Kriti Sanon have teamed up for a new film titled Shehzada. Fans of Bollywood horror movies have a reason to rejoice. Director Anand Gandhi, known for hit period supernatural movie called Tumbar, has announced another horror film, Wildebeest. The makers of Meenakshi Sundareshwar have released the first trailer of the movie. Hollywood star Paul Bettany is all set to star in the Miramax dramedy titled Harvest Moon from a script he co-wrote with Dana Brown. The official trailer for Home Sweet Home Alone has been dropped. 20th Century Studios reimagines hit Home Alone holiday film franchise in the film. The new trailer for the latest horror film Scream has been dropped. The film sees the return of original cast members Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox and David Arquette. Singer-songwriter Paul Simon turned 80 on Wednesday. Simon is best known for giving hits with The Sound of Silence and Bridge Over Troubled Wit. The cast of the Emmy-winning drama Succession celebrated the show's third season on the red carpet in New York on Tuesday. And British writer J.K. Rowling has released a new children's book about a little boy and his big toy. The Harry Potter author's new story called The Christmas Pig follows Jack, who loves his childhood toy, Der Pig, or DP for short. Well, that's all in today's edition of Express News. For the latest updates on news, do stay tuned into DD India. Thanks for watching.
The calmness of the serene sky above us gets slightly interrupted by our movement on the ground. As we moved on, the narrow route on both sides gave way to lush greenery. In terms of its geographical specifications, the Orang National Park, encompassing an area of 78.81 square kilometers, lies on the north bank of the Brahmaputra, delimited between 26.483 degrees north, 92.266 degrees east, and 26.666 degrees north and 92.45 degrees east, within the districts of Darang and Sonitpur. Pakhnoi River, Belsiri River and Dhanshiri River border the park and join the Brahmaputra River. During the monsoon, the park becomes a veritable floodplain with many streams overlapping each other. These floodplains constitute 12 wetlands in the park, apart from the 26 man-made water bodies. The park is thus formed of alluvial floodplains of the many rivers and is an integral part of the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot. The total area of the park has been categorized into Eastern Himalayan moist deciduous forest of about 15.85 square kilometers, Eastern seasonal swamp forest of about 3.28 square kilometers, Eastern wet alluvial grassland of about 8.33 square kilometers, savanna grassland of about 18.17 square kilometers, degraded grassland of about 10.36 square kilometers, water body of about 6.13 square kilometers, moist sandy area of about 2.66 square kilometers, and dry sandy area of about 4.02 square kilometers. It has a fairly flat terrain tending north to south with a gentle slope. The elevation in the park varies from 45 meters or 148 feet to 70 meters or 230 feet. It is bounded on the south and east by islands and spill channels of the river. But the flat alluvial land is seen distinctly as two terraces. The lower terrace is of recent origin on the bank of the Brahmaputra River, and the other is the upper terrace to the north, separated by a high bank running through the park. The whole park is encircled by inhabited villages, thus subjecting it to biotic pressure.
One thing I have been managing this here for the past 1.5 years, and my experience says that Orang National Park is a floodplain of Brahmaputra River, and like any floodplain of Brahmaputra River, this is vulnerable to erosions and depositions. And but the legal boundary of Orang National Park is rigid and fixed on the map. So and Orang National Park is 79.28 square kilometer. Losing 10 square kilometer of land within this particular legal boundary is also an issue for us. So one thing which we think is like one major issue which we have to address for the future is we have to increase the legal boundary of the park into the riverine area of Brahmaputra, so that if there is a deposition, that particular land will become rich for wild animals to move on to. So currently there is not much land available for them to move on to if there is some kind of a loss of land within the legal boundary.
सारी तैयारी कर ली अपने गोपाल की शादी की। लच्छू सब संभाल रहा है। भैया जी जूते आ गए हैं, शेरवानी फिट करा लिया है।
वहाँ बात की।
भैया जी ऐसी बातों में मर्दों का क्या काम?
वाह, जब बहू आएगी तुझे पूछेगी बुड़बक कि परिवार नियोजन का कौन सा तरीका अपनाना है तो क्या कहेगा? लच्छू संभाल रहा है। सिर्फ शादी नहीं, शादी के बाद की समझदारी की तैयारी करो।
सेहत और सोच दोनों से तैयार होकर परिवार बढ़ा रहा है इंडिया। फोन करें और परिवार नियोजन से जुड़ी सब जानकारी पाएं। जोड़ी जिम्मेदार जो प्लान करे परिवार।
Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching News Night on DD India, your prime time destination for news and analysis. It's good to see you again. Right, on the show tonight, we take a deep dive into an ambitious infrastructure and connectivity monitoring project launched in New Delhi this morning. Now, in the words of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it will promote a work culture of not only completing projects on time, but ahead of time. Also on the show, the latest External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar's visit to Armenia, plus news and updates from India and around the world. All that and much, much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches the PM Gati Shakti Master Plan for Connectivity. The game-changing launch will lead to rapid infrastructure development across ministries and sectors. The Prime Minister says the master plan will give an impetus to the 21st century India. Corporate world hails the launch of the master plan as the world recovers from a slowdown caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The PM Gati Shakti will help build a new supply-side capacity that can set the wheels of growth in motion. Cumulative coal supplies to thermal power plants crosses 2 million tons. Supply of coal to power plants being increased to ensure sufficient stocks of coal at power plants. The coal minister visits the Deepka coal mine in Korba district of Chhattisgarh, which is one of the largest in the country. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman asserts that there is no dearth of coal in India, calls it misinformation at an interaction at Harvard University in the US. Clarifies that the country was not heading towards deficiency. Figures released by the Power Ministry show no shortfall of power supply to Delhi over the last fortnight. Russian President Vladimir Putin rubbishes allegations that Moscow is using natural gas as a geopolitical weapon. Says Russia is open to discussing additional steps to supply natural gas to Europe. European Commission publishes a toolbox of measures to tackle surging energy prices, accuses Russia of not stepping up supplies. The Ministry of External Affairs criticizes China's objections to the recent visit of Vice President Venkaiah Naidu to Arunachal Pradesh. Says Arunachal Pradesh is an integral and inalienable part of India. Indian leaders routinely travel to the state as they do to any other state of India. External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar discusses about enhanced connectivity with his Armenian counterpart in Yerevan, proposes that the Chabahar port in Iran be included in the international north-south transport corridor, which has the potential to bridge connectivity barriers. Indian Army Chief in Colombo on a 4-day visit receives a ceremonial welcome, calls on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. His visit coincides with the ongoing India-Sri Lanka joint bilateral exercise Mitra Shakti. And top Jaish-e-Mohammed's commander killed in an encounter in the Tral area of Jammu and Kashmir. 8 terrorists have been killed in 5 encounters in the valley over the last 3 days. Right, let me dive straight into our cover story. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday launched the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan for multimodal connectivity. Ministers, chief ministers and industrialists took part in the function. Now, Prime Minister Modi said this ambitious project lays the foundation of a self-reliant India over the next 25 years.
भारत आने वाले कुछ ही समय में प्रधानमंत्री गति शक्ति का नेशनल मास्टर प्लान उसको देश के सामने करोड़ों देशवासियों को सपना करने वाली एक बहुत बड़ी योजना लेकर के हम आपके सामने आने वाले हैं, उसको लॉन्च करने वाले हैं.
This announcement was made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi from the ramparts of the Red Fort, and in just 2 months' time, on the auspicious day Maha Ashtami, the game-changing master plan, PM Gati Shakti, was launched by the Prime Minister at the Pragati Maidan in Delhi. The National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity will speed up infrastructure development in the country by linking 16 ministries, including railways and road and highways.
ये नेशनल मास्टर प्लान 21वीं सदी के भारत को गति शक्ति देगा. नेक्स्ट जनरेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और मल्टी मॉडल कनेक्टिविटी को इस नेशनल प्लान से गति शक्ति मिलेगी.
PM Gati Shakti will address the past issues through institutionalizing holistic planning for stakeholders for major infrastructure projects. Via centralized portal, several ministries will gain mutual access to in-depth details of projects. Multimodal connectivity will facilitate unified and seamless connectivity for movement of people, goods and services. Infrastructure creation in India had suffered for decades from multiple issues. There was lack of coordination between different departments. Steps have also been taken to address other issues like time-taking approval process, multiplicity of regulatory clearances, etc. Instead of planning and designing separately in silos, the projects will be designed and executed with a common vision. It will incorporate infrastructure schemes of various ministries and state governments like Bharatmala, Sagarmala, Inland Waterways, Dry and Land Ports, Udan, etc. Doyens of the corporate world hailed the visionary master plan.
The long-term impact will indeed be deep and sustainable. The impact is far beyond just improving the ease of doing business. In fact, it will have a disproportionate impact on improving the ease of living itself.
एक नंबर 1 तो एक सिग्निफिकेंट चेंज आते हैं हमारे वर्क कल्चर में. 16 मिनिस्ट्रीज वर्किंग टुगेदर. टेक्नोलॉजी का जो यूजेज है सब कोऑर्डिनेशन के लिए एक बहुत ही सिग्निफिकेंट एक लैंडमार्क इवेंट में हम कह सकते हैं.
Government policy today clearly focuses on creating an ecosystem measured along multidimensional parameters that will attract private sector investment. Gati Shakti is at the epicenter of this ecosystem.
The launch of PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan will be a game changer for the industry and would help to harness the potential of the industry in line with your vision of scale and speed.
Economic zones like textile clusters, pharmaceutical clusters, defense corridors, electronic parks, industrial corridors, fishing clusters, agriculture zones will be covered to improve connectivity and make Indian businesses more competitive. It will also leverage technology extensively, including planning tools with ISRO imagery. PM Gati Shakti is based on 6 pillars. These are comprehensiveness, prioritization, optimization, synchronization, analytical tools, and dynamic platform. PM Gati Shakti is the result of the Prime Minister's relentless efforts to build next-generation infrastructure that makes life easier as well as doing business easier. Arun Sharma's report, DD India.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says people, Indian industry manufacturers and farmers are at the center of the PM Gati Shakti. A gap in planning and implementation, problems of lack of coordination and working in silos are hampering projects and leading to a wastage of budget. The new master plan aims to optimize the utilization of resources. The Prime Minister also inaugurated a new exhibition complex at the Pragati Maidan in New Delhi on the occasion.
With the launch of the Prime Minister Gati Shakti National Master Plan on Wednesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated the resolve of building an Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is the foundation of New India being laid for the next 25 years. The Prime Minister stressed that the people of India, Indian industry, business, manufacturers of India and Indian farmers are at the center of this Gati Shakti Master Plan. It will give new energy to the present and future generations to build the India of the 21st century.
आज का मंत्र है Will for progress, work for progress, wealth for progress, plan for progress, preference for progress. हमने न सिर्फ परियोजनाओं को तय समय सीमा में पूरा करने का वर्क कल्चर विकसित किया, बल्कि आज समय से पहले प्रोजेक्ट पूरे करने का प्रयास हो रहा है.
Prime Minister Modi said that the gap between macro planning and micro implementation is the root cause of hurdles in the country's path of development. That is the reason why policy planning and their budget allocation do not bear the required results. The Prime Minister also lamented the fact that the subject of infrastructure in our country has not been a priority for most political parties.
हमारे देश में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का विषय ज्यादातर राजनीतिक दलों की प्राथमिकता से दूर रहा है. यह उनके घोषणा पत्र में भी नजर नहीं आता है. अब तो यह स्थिति आ गई है कि कुछ राजनीतिक दल देश के लिए जरूरी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के निर्माण पर आलोचना करने में गर्व करते हैं, जबकि दुनिया में ये स्वीकृत बात है कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के लिए क्वालिटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का निर्माण एक ऐसा रास्ता है जो अनेक आर्थिक गतिविधियों को जन्म देता है, बहुत बड़े पैमाने पर रोजगार का निर्माण करता है.
Prime Minister Modi recalled that when he took over as the Prime Minister in 2014, he reviewed hundreds of stuck projects and put them all on a single platform to realize the collective power of the government in fulfilling schemes.
मैं जब 2014 में यहां दिल्ली एक नई जिम्मेवारी के साथ आया, तो भी ऐसे सैकड़ों प्रोजेक्ट थे जो दशकों से लटके हुए थे. लाखों करोड़ रुपए के ऐसे सैकड़ों प्रोजेक्ट्स की मैंने खुद समीक्षा की. सरकार के सारे विभागों, सारे मंत्रालयों को एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर लाकर खड़ा कर दिया, सारी रुकावटों को दूर करने का प्रयास किया. मुझे संतोष है कि अब सबका ध्यान इस ओर गया है कि आपसी तालमेल की कमी की वजह से परियोजनाओं में देरी ना हो.
The Prime Minister cited different examples to elucidate that Gati Shakti Master Plan will not only create immense employment opportunities but also reduce logistic cost, improve supply chains and make local goods globally competitive.
PM Gati Shakti अब ये सुनिश्चित करेगी कि 21वीं सदी का भारत इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट में कोऑर्डिनेशन में कमी की वजह से ना पैसे का नुकसान उठाए और ना ही समय गंवाए. पीएम गति शक्ति नेशनल मास्टर प्लान के तहत रोड से लेकर रेलवे तक, एविएशन से लेकर के एग्रीकल्चर तक विभिन्न मंत्रालयों को, विभागों को इससे जोड़ा जा रहा है.
The Prime Minister also inaugurated 4 exhibition complexes of the International Exhibition cum Convention Centre at Pragati Maidan on the occasion. He expressed the hope that with the development of quality infrastructure, India can realize the dream of becoming the business capital of the world, thereby increasing our global competitiveness. With Arun Sharma, News Night Desk, DD India.
Now, before I bring in my guest for a discussion, I want to quickly recap for the benefit of you, the viewer, who might be joining us from India and abroad, about the Prime Minister Gati Shakti National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity. Let's pull up some graphics for you. First up, you need to know what is the PM Gati Shakti. Now, simply put, it is a digital platform for coordinating implementation of infrastructure connectivity projects. It's an analytical decision support governance tool. Now, if you didn't notice already, the name Gati Shakti is made up of 2 Hindi words, Gati and Shakti. Gati means speed and Shakti means power. Now, it's been developed by the Gandhinagar, Gujarat-based Bhaskaracharya National Institute for Space Applications and Geoinformatics. It's an autonomous body under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. Next, if you're wondering, what does it do? Well, the PM Gati Shakti helps in integrated project planning. It brings together 16 different ministries such as railways and roadways. Next up, what do we know about the background of Gati Shakti? Now, Prime Minister Modi announced the decision to set up the PM Gati Shakti on 15th August, India's Independence Day. And 60 days later, he launched the 100 lakh crore rupee, over 13